what it does, well, we'll walk it. It's involved right through Belgium, onto Holland, right to Holland, onto the barges at Holland. And then we went up the Rhine and landed at this place called the Wiesel. And that's where the Gordons landed at D-Day. When they crossed the Rhine, that's where they landed, the Wiesel. But, and then we marched through the village, along West Arnhem, it was Lambert, and we went on the trains and what, it was then the cattle wagons. And that was you till in the train, in this cattle wagons, the Lamser. And then when you was going to working parties again, there's a train again, Volkswagen again, cattle wagons again, till you landed forever. Well, I like our Glybeats. We landed in a place called Hindenburg, and we walked from Hindenburg into Glasgow, which was only about 3-4 miles. We walked from there till E55. It was either walking or cattle wagons. That was your transport. And jumping from there to 1945, it was walking all the way. That place in Germany, or Polish border, right in Czechoslovakia. It took us from January till April, the beginning of May, to get to Brooks, Czechoslovakia. And that's I'm telling you what they can. They try to keep you in. They try to keep you undercover on it. And well, if you say one of the places a couple of days, you used to steal the rabbits and milk the cows and the other kind of things again.
Who far did you walk a day when you were on the march, I guess, between camps now?
Oh, yeah.
Difficult to say, Jimmy.
Hard to say now. You just walk at the dialect the dark. I would say the kilometers I just couldn't get. But they see us, a lot of things, fishing for into Germany. There's a lot of things that happen that I wouldn't tell you about again. No. A lot of things happen. Crazy kids I was speaking about.
Bad things like
for your end it to you. For your end, for your comrades supposed to be. A lot of things.
I can for yourself.
Well, if you were speaking, I'll give one instance. I was just alone, right? And there was 3 hours that we in a hand. Look at this time, you see. And well, I was looking, but in 1940 it was really a hot summer. There was no march. Thousands was in march. And I was when I drank a water. I said, no, he said, Joe, he said, I was. He said, well, he'll be a drink. You drink one, a great big French bottle full of water. He said, I don't give you. So I'll be a drink for 2 cigarettes. Near cigarette within miles.
sinking ourselves now with weight. So I had to leave you in the water. And there was 820 gallons of water railroad that night. Stop the flow.
An aircraft mechanic. From Halton, I went to RAF station at Lynham, then on to RAF station Ossington at Nottinghamshire, and then from Nottinghamshire we moved up to Fraserburgh. My first recollections of that was that it was a very, very sudden move. I was just told to get our kit and our bags and everything packed very quickly, and a special train was waiting, and it took our unit, or most of our unit, to Fraserburgh. Having said that, we was only a small part that came to Kilnbog, about approximately 85 people, and yet out of that 85 people there was almost 60 Londoners, and the result was when we came to Fraserburgh we arrived here around 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was in the early part of May 1943, and we thought obviously at that time it was a very, very cold, wind-swept place, and I'm afraid that recollection still stays. And then we was taken out to Kilnbog Aerodrome by special train, and there was Beaufighters or Beauforts accompanied by Spitfires, and as they crossed over what is known as the Baths House, one of the Spitfires touched one of the Beaufighters, and the result was he finished up in the water, possibly a quarter of a mile offshore. This particular pilot was rescued by the pilot boat from Fraserburgh Harbour, and I believe it was a Mr. William Smith, who's long since dead now, who was the man who rescued him. Particular winter of 1943, the Gowan Hill Road had at least 10 feet of snow on it, I believe. It was certainly blocked for a considerable time. A tremendous southerly storm got up from nowhere, and as far as I recollect it, overturned 2 of our aircraft and destroyed them. And this was a thing which again we weren't used to, such a quick change in the weather conditions, a dramatic changes. During 1944 they put all dummy aircraft, they were built on the east side of the aerodrome along the side of the beaches, and these were Boston aircraft and there was one particular night when I was laying out the flare path, a twin-engine German aeroplane approached, and he was actually given a green light to land. But I didn't realise that he was a German at the time, and immediately he'd swooped over the airfield, no doubt taking photos. The lights and everything was all put out. We had one serious accident during the time I was there, and that was when 2 aircraft collided, and unfortunately there was 2 people killed, one in each aircraft I think it was. There was a Sergeant Milne, a pupil, who was training to be a pilot, and there was also an Australian pilot officer who was an instructor. The Sergeant Milne is now buried in Kilnbog Cemetery. One disaster when we had a physical training instructor drowned at Fluff. He was actually rescuing ATC cadets, and he rescued 4 or 5 before he was swept out to sea, and although we put aircraft up to look for him, he was never seen again. There was another particular instance when we had 3 Hampden aircraft landed, and they landed from a northwest to a southeast, and thereby all overshooting the aerodrome and landing in the ditch next to the farm. No sooner had we got these cleared, and the Flying Fortress did the exact same thing. But the Flying Fortress, being an American plane, spares were flown up from Preston, where apparently it was based, and new engines and everything were fitted, and the aircraft was actually flown away in about 10 days. Having said this, the aircraft was landing from west to east when it came in. This was the one with the spares, and it happened to be a Sunday afternoon, and the result was that the Keonbog St Combs Road was just packed with people watching this aircraft. I'm sure there's thousands around this area who will remember that particular happening, because to see a Flying Fortress land at Keonbog was something even in those days. But we did have these Warwick aircraft patrolling with lifeboats around this coast, which we hadn't seen before again. Probably many local people saw them, but they had a lifeboat actually strapped underneath the nose of the aircraft. And we were eventually transferred to Bindy Aerodrome at Banff, which was the main station, and Dullocky further along the coast was also in a satellite. But having been transferred to Banff, the unit actually disbanded on the 30th of August in 1944. This particular unit, number 14 Advanced Flying Unit, was, I believe, one of the biggest units in the whole of Britain, and I can't give you a figure for the amount of pilots that were trained over the time we was here, but I do remember reading up that it was an unbelievable figure. The particular aircraft was an Airspeed Oxford, a twin-engine plane, which was used for training pilots at RAF Keonbog during 1943. And the men sitting on it are the maintenance crew of the night flying flight.
I can't go overhead, but I was still in control. I can't, there was no damage. So I started taking evasive action and did a few corkscrews, but at the same time, I can't, this plane was burning bad. His wing was burning. He'd got a head tract and a petrol tank in the wing. So I said to the gunners, I says, keep an eye on the plane that's burning, and see if he can flee long enough for the crew to get out, with the, you know, for the parachutes. So I think they said the plane flew for about and it didn't explode, it just flew for about a minute and a half or whatever. I don't know if he'd put it in, I don't know what would be a time for to use the automatic pilot for it until the crew got to it. But I don't think he had that in, because they said that the plane, and the best time he was in a rear ass. They said that the plane started in down after about a minute or so. Now, we got by that bit all right. I checked and just made a check around the crew. I started with the navigator and to make sure they were all right, there were no injuries, no casualties. opened up the bomb base to make sure they were working, and just a visual check that the air gunners could see if it was anything on the wings or whatever. So all the damage was being done below, but there was nobody hurt, and there was no, didn't stop there, only were instruments or anything for working. And we're broadcasting every 15 minutes, for the wireless operators we're broadcasting every 15 minutes. And after the 15 minutes he got a message back. The only plane that didn't call them on this first lot was a guy called Green. Pilot was Green. We used to call him TI Green for target indicators. That's what he used to bomb, you know, because he was a New Zealand pilot there. So I think he had the time to get out the plane, but you never heard, like, we never heard fog it out or fog didn't get out. You never heard only fog was prisoners of war. Maybe the Air Force did, but we never. It's, you know, you're a woman. Well, shortly after that, I looked out my left-hand side and I saw, I think it was an ME-109 just getting by, but he was a bit down below us, and he maybe been as much. I just saw the silhouette against the white clouds. And Peter were training at initial training, from I said, to Scarborough in England, ITW initial training, before we started flying it down. That was one of the things we did, aircraft recognition. And it was silhouettes that you used to get. And you got all kinds of them. You used to get them on screens, like, you know, and you got them in pictures and everything else. So it's easy to pick up all the planes in that day and age. I can't them on. So I said to the gunner, I says, I think there's a ME-109, it's a German fighter, and chances are they'll be coming up in our port side, and he's about 1,000 feet below us, so I'd like to be. So just keep an eye. And we spoke very little, just at the mere things like that, communication. Nothing else. You couldn't. I've read books here about pilots saying fit to say it and fit the bomb him say it and all the rest to it, otherwise to target, and you would think it was a conversation we were sitting in the mess hall. That's not the way it was supposed to be, and that's not the way we did it. You weren't supposed to strictly. You couldn't have been speaking about fit you were going to the dance or why you took him for the dance. When you were over here and a fighter can know how to attack you. You can. And so I think some of these books really didn't carry that story. Well, anyway, the next thing I never heard nothing for the gunner, and you never saw. I got the tracers coming right in between the nose of the plane and the wing. Coming right in, here, right by, close. Almost you could put a hand out. If you could have. It felt like that, maybe a little bit further. And better training, of course, you did corkscrew action. That was diving and twisting and turning and climbing, and all the time you was twisting just like a corkscrew. So and when you was attacked for the left, you're supposed to dive left, but you can't dive right into bullets, so we turned to the right and did evasive action. Got away from him that time. And then I said to the other gunners, I believe this time he'll come in for the starboard side, but higher, because he's faster than us. I was just thinking that I would have done my sail, like, you know, to catch up, but you would have to climb. And Amy is a lot faster than the Lancaster. And I think I would have just followed that practice and carried right on and get up above and pick up the engines for the blare off the engines. Well, this is exactly what happened. And the next thing I can't, our guns is going. There was no tracers. And I told them to fire. I said, if you see him first, fire, Charlie. That was the rear gunner. I said, then I wait for him to fire. You fire. Well, he was supposed to call the pilot, like, and say that the enemy fighter, but emergencies like that. He didn't bother. He just started firing. I could hear the guns rattling and the plane vibrating a little bit. So I can't tell he was firing at the fighter. But I thought, well, instead of taking evasive action at that stage, I would let him get a chance, as long as he was firing, nobody was firing back, maybe to. And then the next thing I got the tracers. This time was coming over my head, but it was a good bit away nearly as close. I couldn't have Geordie firing, I suppose. And then Geordie said he shot him down. He says, I think I've shot him down. Of course, this was all happening at the rear, so I didn't again if he actually shot him down or not. But I did guess that we were firing last, and the fighter never bothered us again that night.
We had people as far apart as Stewartfield, Old Deer, and then Aberdour, Sligo, Strixon. You see, that would be within a radius of 12 to 14 miles. That was our district. Only the various platoons, the Sligo platoon, the Rosati platoon, were known by names. Rosati, Sligo. Besides, Fresborough was known by 1 up to 14. 1 platoon, 14 platoon. Of course, with a big influx of labour, boat building, boat repairing, toolworks engineering, McConaughey Brothers, food factories. There was such a lot of people available and women available. We had our ladies section who were used as telephone operators and broadcasting, with broadcasting equipment in both factories. And all the both factories, 3 factories they had, and McConaughey's put it in as well, so that they could be warned what to do, whether to lie down or whether to go to your shelters, or whether to come back to your shelters. And that was all done by being in touch with our own spotters. All they had to do was to speak at a microphone, and the control room heard it immediately. They had no ringing up with phones or anything like that. Just to spoke direct into the control room. And McConaughey's also spoken to direct in their control room. We also spoke direct to the guns. The guns at the regulars manned. There was microphones on the gun site, microphone under headquarters, all from the control room at the toolworks, who was warned on their raid maps the actual position of the enemy planes, whereabout they were in the Buchan district. And we could man the guns before ever the plane appeared, or get to your shelters before the plane appeared. This happened through the Rosati spotters post.
To go to the fishing, and then they were limited, the grounds were limited, the areas they could fish were limited. Well, it's natural, there was minefields out there, mine barriers laid, and they were very limited to the areas they could fish. Although they did all right, the boys at well at home, like, as far as I'm led to believe. They did all right financially, like, but there was no joyride. There was a few of them lost too, a few of these trawlers in particular, they were bombed and sunk, you know, quite a few, and we've had cases of it from this area. Oh, they're really a grand race of people, and my goodness me, this country did depend on them, especially the first 2 years of the war. they diluted to start with. The ships were manned by fishermen and merchant navy men, but they were gradually diluted as the fleet expanded, the minesweeping and the stick trawlers expanded, and the different bases, the more ships. They diluted the crews down. They were the backbone aboard the new ships. Well, these fishermen and merchant navy men. With a lot of hostility on the people to make the crews up. But they all learned through experience. But that was the backbone of the service. Especially when I'm thinking now, when I'm talking to you now, I'm thinking of some of the skippers that I knew when the war started in the first 2 or 3 years of the war. They were really the backbone of the Navy. Great lads, man. I can't speak highly enough of them, you know. No. When I think now what they went through, they were all fishermen. All the skippers were fishermen at that time. Then they gradually diluted them with RNVRs and things like that. You know, that's a different thing. That was gentlemen trying to be seamen. I'm talking about seamen trying to be gentlemen, and I'm talking about us lads and skipper lads. Oh yes. I dare say you'll meet a lot of them in your travels in Fraserburgh. In this area there are quite a few, especially over at Cairnbog, you know, there's quite a few lads. Oh, I know.